Alright, looks like we're underway. Shaky as usual. What was up with the lighting in this bitch? Hang on a second. That's my own phone being dull. Dude. Alright. Welcome back to yet another live rant where an egotistical dude pretends he knows how to live, tells everyone else how to do it. Sound good? Good. Alright, once again, big thank you to all of those of you who will show up live, have a geese, and for those of you watching the recording and your inconvenience, thank you guys as well. Please, as always, share your thoughts, comments, criticisms, questions, anything in the comments below, and I'll try to address them as we go through. So, I'll be also talking about, I'm developing the program in the background here, and I'll be talking about some of the questions that have come up about it, what it's going to cover, what it won't. So I'll talk about that at the end, as usual. Today we're going to be tackling a sticky topic, kind of a controversial one, which I was surprised by. Long story short, I commented on a YouTube video where a guy, Bobby Lee, comedian who broke up with his girlfriend Khalyla something, talked about the unexpectedly devastating effect that caring for her through a sickness had on their relationship. And I commented this is an issue that people don't talk about enough. The risks that caring, or should I say caretaking, can have on your attraction for somebody and on the health of the relationship. And woo-wee, did I get a response to that, I think it's the most responded to comment on that video, but I got a big range. That was a polarizing fucking thing to say, apparently. I was actually just saying congrats on him for having honesty, but it really stuck, prodded a wound for people here. A lot of people were very upset that I would dare to suggest that caring for your partner might have a negative effect on the relationship. And usually when I get a response like that, I'm like, yep, we gotta talk about this. We need to fucking talk about it. So we're gonna today. For those of you bold enough to stick into this conversation, thank you very much, because this is a topic that if you can have the fucking balls to get into it, face the truths, face your own demons and darkness, your relationships are much more likely to be healthy and much more likely to survive the inevitable downfalls of life, which include one or both partners getting sick, either mentally or physically, and especially chronic illness. That's what we'll be talking about today. So what we're really going to be talking about today is the difference between caring and caretaking, and getting that difference right, knowing which is which and doing one rather than the other, makes a huge difference to how likely it is your relationship's going to survive when your partner needs care, right? Or you need care from your partner. It goes both ways. But in particular, if you identify as a nice guy, if you've got that people-pleasing thing in you, this is a very, very important topic. So, I'll start with keeping it personal and making sure, that you understand that this is not something that I'm being hypocritical about. I have to go through this myself. So, when my wife and I met, we were both doing really well, you might say. Both had really happy lives, so on and so forth. And so the start of our relationship was just all guns blazing. Brilliant. It was a brilliant start to a relationship. I was very excited about it. And, other than the usual stutter start I have when I'm starting a new sexual relationship with someone, bit of premature ejaculation here and there before I get my shit sorted, and we developed a healthy, robust, active sex life early on. That typical honeymoon phase sex life where you're just doing it all the time and you're doing it in public and all that crazy stuff, right? So we had all that going. Stuff happened, blah blah blah, and then Lucy developed depression. We didn't know that's what it was until much later, but it was definitely depression. And this thing stops sliding. There we go. And it was, it's something that had been building up for many years and finally hit her when she sort of relaxed with me, which is what often happens when you're in a relationship with a nice guy. You're with a guy who actually treats you well and you feel safe. Your guard finally comes down, and whatever you've been suppressing and holding back comes out. And so nice guys often complain like, Jesus, people just like download their problems on me and treat me as like as a counselor and so on. I'm like, yeah, because you're the only person they feel safe with, dude, and all that shit. They've been waiting. And so quite often it's quite normal in both big and small factors, vectors, that people crash with a nice guy. Okay. So anyway, that happened. Lucy crashed with me, and she crashed hard. This was long-term, significant, major depressive disorder, depression. I can't remember how long it went for. I think about a year. It was really, really dark. She could barely get out of bed, crying all the time. Couldn't hold down a job, didn't want to socialize, couldn't make decisions, super stressed out, very, very negative and pessimistic, easily just destroyed emotionally by the very smallest of upsets. Something doesn't get delivered on time, that's her day over, kind of thing. She had proper depression. And this weird thing started to happen. I mean, we had the natural kind of consequences of depression. Our sex life basically died off completely. It was really hard to talk to her without upsetting her. It was very, very stressful. She was living with me at the time. And I was just worried about her all the time. Just constantly worrying. So while she had depression, I started having anxiety as a response. And I could barely focus on a coaching session without thinking like, God, is she crying right now? Like, how's she doing today? Some minor bad news would come in. I'm like, oh God, what's going to happen when I tell her about this? Fuck, I broke her favorite plate. Jesus Christ, how am I going to tell her? It was like walking on eggshells. It got to that point where I was just constantly worried about, like I was trying to protect her from things going wrong. And constantly trying to come up with ideas of things that might boost her, Try to take her to interesting activities, try to say wonderful things, give her all the love and affection that she might need, trying to sort of hug her to health, And it was very sensitive because every time, let's say I take her to a dance event to cheer her up, what if someone doesn't want to dance with her, What if we get there and it costs more than she thought it was going to, or, what if it's not her type of music? I mean, she was that sensitive that these things could totally destroy the night. So I felt like I was taking all these big risks all the time and quite often would lose. And you get into this, I'd get into this idea in my head, I can't win. Like no matter what I do, she doesn't get any better. Right? Now that's a huge red flag that I'm thinking like that. For two reasons. One is I'm building up resentment. Whenever you start saying to yourself, I can't win, you start to build up resentment. You start to feel like life is unfair. This is classic nice guy stuff. This is unfair. I'm getting like worse treatment than other people get, and I don't deserve it. That kind of narrative in the head, however it plays out. It's always very specific to the situation. Like this shouldn't happen. This should be better by now, so on. So I've got this narrative building up. Very, very dangerous. Resentment is about the most dangerous emotion for a relationship. Because it's going to try and land somewhere. Whose fault is this? Who do I blame? And eventually you're going to be like, she's always here when I'm feeling this way. And then it's going to land on her. And once your resentment lands on your partner, it is a fucking nightmare trying to pull it back. And resentment leads to contempt. Once you start to look down on your partner, see them as weak, see them as inferior, see them as a barrier to you enjoying your life, it's very, very hard to pull that back. That is an almost certain death sentence for a relationship if you get to full contempt. And there's actually scientific data to back this up. But contempt kills relationships. So on one hand, I had this resentment's building up because I can't win, and I'm a problem solver. So when I get a problem I can't solve, I get very, very frustrated and agitated. I can't remember what the other thing was. So I've got the resentment building up. And then, of course, I'm very, very focused on things I can't control. And I'm starting to become obsessed with Lucy's depression. It's become like the center of my existence. It's all I can think about. The real issue here was that once again in my life, despite coaching people and everything, I had crossed the line from caring into caretaking. I want you guys to think about it, and you put your answers in the comments when you hear this bit. What's the difference between caring and caretaking? There's a key difference there. There's a few key differences, but there's one in particular. I think the simplest way you could describe caring is love, support, kindness. It's about being a person that is very loving to be around. When someone's caring for you, you feel that they care. You feel that they love you, that they place you very highly in their priorities, in their hierarchy, and that they're there for you should you really need someone. Caretaking is about control. It's about fixing or preventing problems from occurring. And the secret darkness in caretaking is, what you're really doing it for is not them but yourself. So the narrative in my head is, I'm trying to help Lucy with her depression. I'm trying to make her feel better. I want her to get better. And there is genuine that in there. There is real caring in there. I don't want to see someone I love suffer. But underneath this, the truth I had to face was, her suffering is a burden to me. And that's what I'm really trying to get off my shoulders. But the thing is with caretaking, is that her suffering was only a burden to me. Because I told myself it was. Because I told myself it's my job to fix it. That's not hers. She's too weak to fix it. I have to do it. And I got myself into this horrible loop that nice guys do, is when you start caretaking someone, they become dependent on you. You think about any time your partner's been unwell or had mental health issues or whatever, and you've felt like, without me they would completely fall apart, and you forget that actually prior to meeting you in their life, they've been through things like this before. They've been sick before, they've been depressed, they've been stressed before, and you weren't there, and yet they got through it. So what is the story like they need me? Where do you get that from? Is it real, or do you create it? And it's one of the most dangerous creations. Codependency is one of the most dangerous creations you can bring into a relationship, where you enable their kind of dependence on you to the point where it actually comes true. They really do. And I did it again when Lucy, not so much during the pregnancy as much, but when our daughter was born, it was way harder than we thought it was going to be. Just physically way harder. Breastfeeding and hormones and damage to the body and everything. That I was expecting a few weeks of recovery, not many months of recovery. And postnatal depression, all the stuff happened. We had all the stuff, and again, I kept trying to fix it. I kept trying to go like, what can I do that takes away the pain, rather than seeing the truth, which is, there's nothing I can do to take away this pain. I mean, I can ease the surrounding environment. I can help, but I can't make breastfeeding not painful. It's outside of my power, right? I can't make my child sleep well. That's outside of my power. I can't make my partner worry less about the little things. It's outside of my power. But I kept trying to take power over that. I kept trying to control it. And then yet again, the resentment builds. I can't do this because my wife's do that. These narratives start to come in. Simple fact is, there'd be these moments where, say I was busy for one day or something and Lucy didn't have me there, and she didn't die. Turns out maybe she doesn't actually need me as much as I tell myself she does, because her problems don't actually need to be solved, and certainly not by me, and they can't be anyway. So caring is sustainable. You can care for someone, be their partner, be on the side of them as they suffer throw an arm around them and say, you're not alone. That you can do forever, without losing interest in your partner, without the anxiety killing your sex life and so on, without starting to see them as a sick, weak person. As long as you're always viewing them as somebody who can get through this on their own. Doesn't mean they don't need help, but what it means is you're not the person to fix this, they are. You're just going to be beside them, like an assistant, rather than in the lead role. I think maybe that's the best way, like a cheerleader assistant, that's caring. Whereas caretaking is actually like the physician in charge, the one doing the fixing. The partner, your partner is always the one who's in charge of fixing themselves, their own issues, their problems, solving those. You never take the lead there, and vice versa. You never let them solve your problems, fix you. They can help, they can assist, they can cheerlead, encourage, give you a hug when it's tough, but the solution lies with you. The responsibility must always be with the person who has the issue. Now, one of the reasons that this caretaking really affects your sex life, which builds the resentment even more, is partly because of a deeper thing, which is nice guys in particular, but a lot of people have shame around sex, and guys in particular are taught that sex is something we kind of take from women. A lot of us are raised and conditioned to believe that men benefit from sex way more than women do, and that women actually have to give it up. We often, we talk about getting laid, don't we? Like we're taking something, right? And often we'll describe the woman allowing us to have sex as if it's like some sort of burden she has to take on. Like she let me get a bit sort of thing. We're growing up with this idea that at the very least men enjoy it more than women do, and so women are therefore in charge of deciding when it happens. Or to much more extreme, especially for nice guys, this idea that this hurts the woman in some way, that sex is somehow a burden on them, especially if we figure ourselves to be bad in bed, we're going to double up on that. And sex also always has that edge of violence to it, doesn't it? Sex is a physical act, and it has aggression to it. No matter how delicate and gentle you are going inside somebody else's body, like there's a penetration there, isn't there? And so a nice guy, a person who genuinely is caring, does not want to be violent towards a sick person, do they? And this filters in. We don't really think about it consciously like this, but when you're looking at someone and she's crying in bed, you're not thinking like, damn, wouldn't mind hitting that right now, right? I mean, listen to that, hitting that. That's what we call it, right? So we've got this, sex has this edge of violence to it, or this connotation of violence, and the last thing we want to do is be violent towards someone we love and care for, someone we're worried about, someone we're concerned about. One of the things I noticed in my life is that I was so much more, shall we say, wild in bed with a girl I didn't really care about emotionally. It's like I didn't care about hurting her, and therefore I was much more unleashed and unlimited sexually, and actually much better in bed, according to the feedback. But when I really love a girl, when I really care for her, I can't do it like that. I'm much more gentle and considerate. I'm always sort of a little bit worried. Is she enjoying this? Is she going to come? All those kind of things that don't occur to me when I'm with just some girl. I'm like, let's just use each other's bodies, And so when you've got someone you love very deeply, and you're very worried and very stressed, and they look sick, the last thing you want to do is shag them, right? Even when they're feeling better. I often think of men and women having a slightly different affect when it comes to emotions, which is like women can sort of spike up and down very quickly. So a woman could be really upset and then like really happy, and the transition takes less than 20 seconds, right? I'm not saying it's superficial, it's just they have this ability to shift gears emotionally so much quicker and more efficiently than men do. Very generalized here. Whereas like if I'm stressed, it takes me like hours to get out of it. If I'm sad, it takes me like hours to cheer up. If I'm happy, I can stay, it takes a while to piss me off. You have to irritate me for a long time before I get angry. Once I'm angry, I'm stuck there for a while. So I got this like long sine wave, is that right? Of emotion like this, whereas my wife's more like those heart monitors, right? So I don't know if this actually applies to all men and women, but it certainly applies to me and my wife. And so she might be very sick in the morning, and then full of beans in the afternoon, and ready to go. But I'm still worried about the morning, right? Her change hasn't changed my worry. My worry's still down. I'm still in the same emotion I was when she was really, really sick. So I still don't want sex. I still view her as recovering and weak and so on. I don't want to add to that. And so you end up in a loop. The guy starts withdrawing sexually. He starts walking on eggshells around her. He starts real people-pleasing type stuff, constantly hovering and trying to fix and trying to prevent, getting very frustrated and angry at life for adding to their misery, and for her for not like getting better, and the resentment builds, and not just your sex life but your communication, your love for each other starts to take a serious hit. And this is the danger that caretaking brings into a relationship. But the issue, it's about responsibility. This issue only occurs because you're taking responsibility for their pain and their suffering, and it's actually not your job. And caring is not the same as fixing. Alright? It's also, when you're doing caretaking, when you're desperately trying to solve a problem that's out of your control, you start to get apathy for it. I mean, you can see this right now with the Ukraine-Russia war. You notice how much you've stopped caring? If you're honest with yourself and you're not personally affected, like you don't know anyone personally there or whatever. Notice how you can't help but move on? Because there's this huge issue, but you can't do anything about it. So you rage about it in your mind for a little while. You have some really intimate fucking confrontations with people down at the pub about it, but you notice you're just talking about it less and less as time goes on, and you're moving on. The war's still fucking raging. It's worse than it ever was. But it's really hard to keep caring about it, isn't it? Because you're not really caring. You're caretaking, which is like, I'll fix it. Oh, I can't. Alright, I give up. This is bullshit. And you start to get resentment because you can't control something. Well, multiply that by thousands when it comes to a partner, right? When they have a long-term chronic issue and you've thrown all your best work at it and it just won't get better, you start to get mad. You start to feel that things are unfair. Like, you might start to tell yourself, maybe she's resisting my help. You know? She's getting in the way of the recovery that I'm giving her. The key is to understand that caring is not caretaking. And that if you want to really help them, it means you're going to let someone else do the work. Right? If they have a physical illness, you're not a doctor. You're not a surgeon. You're not a pharmacist. You probably know fuck all about whatever's happening to her physically. You're not the one doing the lab testing. You're not the one who's studied this illness in a laboratory and come up with the solution or any of that. You're not that person, so why are you taking on that role? Why are you trying to fix the sickness? Right? It's like, I know almost nothing about engines, but if if my wife's car broke down, it's like I'm opening the hood and just start pulling out fucking pipes and unscrewing stuff and pouring liquids into holes and just go, oh, I got this. But I say, no, let a fucking mechanic in. What are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. Get out of there. What I might do is go, you know what, I'll help you find a mechanic. That's caring. That's helping. Right? That's where I go, like, let's find an expert who actually knows what the fuck they're doing, instead of me being the one that fixes this. Right? I'll ease up the burden. I'll make the phone call. Phone calls are uncomfortable, so I'll make the phone call for you. Right? I'll go with you to the doctor and hold your hand if you're scared. But the doctor's going to be the one doing the fixing, not me. Right? And actually, you're going to be the one who makes sure she takes her medication, not me. Okay, because you're in charge of your body. Right? Now, unless you have a disorder that affects your memory, right? I'll make sure the medicine's right beside your bed. Okay? And if you left it downstairs, I'll go grab it for you, but I'm not going to tell you to take your medicine. I'm not going to ask you if you're taking it. If you need pain pills, you decide how many you're going to take. I'm not going to say, are you in pain? You should take some pills. I'm not going to try and control this. It's on you. Remember, she was sick before she met you and she got through it. If she has depression, she's probably had it many times in her teen years or whenever it was that she didn't know you and she got through it. Maybe she didn't get through it well by your standards, but who are you to fucking judge? It's not your job to fix her. And the problem is if you start, then she'll back off and let you do it, and she gets weaker. Right? Of course, you'll notice that you're also probably, not in every case, but probably there's some hypocrisy here. When you're sick, you don't want any help, right? Get away from me, I got this. Unless you're the kind of guy that like falls into codependency when they're sick, like, take care of me, right? There's sort of two types, I guess. But me personally, like, I'll hover over her and bother her while she's sick or depressed. But when I'm like that, I'm like, just get off me, I got this. You're suffocating me, you're making it worse. Don't tell me what to do, I know how to manage myself. So why would I do that to her if that's how I feel about it being done to me? Good question, right? So the key is brokerage and detachment. You can't confuse empathy with sympathy. So sympathy is actually feeling their pain and knowing what it's like. And empathy is kind of imagining it and trying to understand it. So empathy's healthy. Like, man, this must be terrible for you. Sympathy is like, I know how that feels, I'll fix it. That's a dangerous place. Brokerage, get the professionals to do the work. Help your partner find the people who actually know what they're doing with this and let them work together to fix this, right? She got depression? Great. Encourage her to go see a doctor. Get her a list of recommended therapists from your friends who have found good ones. But don't force her to go to the therapist. Don't demand that she goes to the doctor. Don't ask her, have you been taking your medication? It's up to her. If she just wants to lie in bed and just be depressed and not fix it, okay then. It's her choice. Right? It's her body. Let her do what she wants to do. She might actually need to go further down before she can come back up. She might need a bit of a crisis. So don't get in the way of that. Don't stop her from hitting bottom if that's what she needs to do. It won't bother you unless you're trying to control it. Right? Sure, you might be like, man, she's really down. It's bumming me out. But you're not going to feel that rage and frustration and agitation unless you're trying to control it. If you feel those feelings, if you're resentful, if you're frustrated, if you're like, come on, where's the solution? You're trying to control it. And that's not her problem, that's yours. The key that I found to escape this problem, it sounds bizarre, but it really worked for me, and it has worked for the others that I've worked on this with, my clients and such. You basically act as if they are okay, which is under the umbrella of kind of like, go get rejected rather than imagine rejections. So, you look at how you behave when they're doing really well, okay? Maybe you initiate events and activities, you let them make decisions, you let them take their 50% of the workload, so on. You initiate sex and, talk about your day, and you do all these things that you only do when they're really well. Keep behaving like that until you hit an actual barrier. Okay, this doesn't mean you become completely oblivious to their suffering. That's not what I'm saying. If you take it that way, then I think you're being facetious. Unless they're obviously incapacitated, obviously writhing and suffering, assume that they've got the strength to say, no, not today, or I'm not up for it, or can we talk about something else, or whatever it is they need to do to manage their health, right? That if you try to initiate sex, they'll be like, I'm not really feeling it, and you go, okay, but you still try again tomorrow, right? You're going to be like, oh my gosh, she's sick, I'm never touching her again because it makes her feel bad. You're not going to let her illness stop you being you. That's what she needs. She needs you to maintain, to be strong. That's caring. Because, for example, and it took me a long time to get here, but when Lucy was depressed, I found if I just keep coming back fresh each day, as if maybe today's the day the depression lifts, then occasionally I'd kind of hit the target. So I might be like, let's go dancing tonight. She says, no, I can't tonight, fucking blah, blah. I go, okay. Then I ask her again tomorrow, as if last night never happened. Shall we go dancing tonight then? And every now and then it'll be like, yeah, I think I can do it tonight. And we'd get out of the house and we'd do something, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I just need to maintain. I don't force, I don't try to control. But each day is like a fresh slate. She might be better today, it might be alright today. Maybe she didn't want sex this morning, but she wants it this afternoon. That can change that quickly. And I should just be honest about what I want. And she could be like, oh my god, it's been such a terrible day. You'd be like, well, that sucks because it's an awesome day. This happened and this happened and this happened. And maybe she actually needs to hear that you had a good day. And she doesn't need to be therapized. You know, she doesn't need you to come in and dig into her issues every single time she has them. Maybe that doesn't actually help every time. Maybe she needs to get out of her head. One of the amazing breakthroughs I had when Lucy was depressed is it really helped her if I actually told her about my problems. And I had held back on that for so long. I was like, God, I don't want to add to her burden, you know. But it turns out, fuck, it really helped her to have someone else's shit to think about for once. Because she can solve other people's problems quite well. It's always been her gift. She likes giving advice and such. And, you know, I'm a good listener when it comes to advice. So I'd tell her my issues and she'd give me advice and guidance and stuff. And it's still gold. And then she'd feel like she did something. You know, like she helped. Like she has some fucking purpose. Like she's of value. And I realised that whenever I came in and dug into her issues and tried to solve them, it made her feel like the weak one, like the patient, like the victim. And she hates being the person who's a burden. She hates not helping. So I actually started adding to her workload rather than reducing it. And that was one of the main things that helped her with her depression. Was to treat, I'd be like, hey, I've got to be out all day, so you'll need to clean up the house or whatever. And she would, you know, look like it was impossible, but come back home, the house is clean, and she feels good about herself. And that was my huge breakthrough. Caring and caretaking. Caring means you keep being you, but you support and help them to achieve their own health. Caretaking is where you try to control their health so that you feel better. Know the difference. Cool. Hope that helps some people. I can't imagine why it's so controversial, but it is. Isn't that weird? Now I'm going to answer some questions some people had about the program. If you're not interested in the program, you can sign out. If you are, keep listening. Let's see if I can find the post. So, a couple of questions. One is, just wondering whether some form of inner work kind of module would be useful. Self-leadership, where you take charge of your inner barriers and have some tools to stay centered when in situations that could inflame anxiety. As a recovering nice guy, this has been a great revelation to me. While we don't have 100% control of our inner reactions, we can influence and redirect them towards more effective outward actions. This would be very practical. So basically, this is textured in throughout the entire course. Okay, so while the course is the program is going to be focused very much on how to practically express yourself shamelessly, powerfully, get respect, confront and, you know, hold boundaries and maintain healthy relationships by being that kind of masculine energy, that leader that's needed. Throughout every module, we're going to be talking about the inner work, and we're really going to be focusing on the beliefs that prevent this kind of behavior from happening. We're going to tackle beliefs that emotions are wrong. We're going to tackle beliefs that you need to manage somebody else's reactions. We're going to tackle beliefs that rejection or people reacting badly to you is something that you need to be afraid of. And we're going to make sure that these behaviors are designed for you to challenge emotional beliefs. So you can't change emotional beliefs with rationality. Right? You can't change an emotional belief by convincing you of facts. But you can with experience. And the course is going to have lots of very practical experiences and exercises to do that will just destroy beliefs that have been holding you back. You have a belief and you'll go and practice something and you'll see that that belief is wrong, and then it will change. So the inner work is done through the outer work, essentially, to answer that question. One person asked, you know, what's the difference between, you know, what's your stuff and what's their stuff? The course is pretty much exclusively focused on what's your stuff. And the idea being is if you know what that is, then you'll be able to identify what somebody else's problem is. So if you're having a conflict in the relationship, I generally recommend that people view it as a 50-50. This is my stuff versus their stuff. We're both creating this issue. And my program will be designed to help you figure out exactly what your part in this is. What are your insecurities? What are your misinterpretations and judgments? You know, what are your sort of unhealthy assumptions and so on? And because you'll be able to identify that, you'll be able to go, okay, now that I've got that sorted, I can see on their side of the fence what's, you know, not going so well. Alright. Next question. Does the course include anything about triggers that cause feelings of guilt in particular, like incompletely resolved childhood experiences reinforced through adulthood? Yeah, there's a huge. I mean, one of the greatest barriers to people being more assertive is this idea I'm going to hurt someone else's feelings, this guilt that you going for what you want is somehow harmful. Again, the exercises in the course are going to address this in multiple ways. One is you're going to see that actually people don't get harmed by you going for what you want, and quite the opposite. Actually, people are relieved to see that side of you and to know exactly what you stand for, and also combining that with being okay with a no. So if you go for what you want, the person says no and stands up against you, you go, okay, fine, it's not right for us, rather than saying it as I did something wrong or I asked for something bad. We'll be talking about misfires in the course. So when you have emotions like guilt that are inappropriate, they've come up but you've done nothing wrong, we'll talk about how to identify those and just sort of let them sit rather than reacting to them. Somebody asked, isn't it good to be shameful sometimes? In the course, the word shame will be representing when you attach something wrong to truth about yourself. So when you think it's bad to be you. Feeling guilty for behaviour that you know breaks your own morals and your own ethical code, that's different. Okay, so we'll separate those two in the program. So shameless is a good thing to be in this program. It means you've got no wrong attached to who you are. So doesn't mean that you should always get what you want. It doesn't mean that you're always right in your beliefs. But the fact that you want something and have beliefs is fine. Right? And we're going to behave according to that. Well, the compulsion to say sorry for things you have no control over. We'll cover that a little bit. We're not going to have a specific module around apologies. But being non-apologetic is woven throughout the whole course, especially we're doing a whole module on being bold. So we're going to be removing apology from the way you present yourself, at least as training wheels. Later on you can keep saying sorry if you think it's appropriate, but in the beginning we're going to be looking at you just saying what you think, what you believe, without trying to moderate it with apology, without being sorry that it exists, removing that shame essentially. One guy says, I'm a big fan of bite-sized action steps or exercises and trying out the various lessons. Yeah, every single module has an exercise, and then when we do the group coaching, which is where we all actually get together and talk, each person will be challenged to come up with a specific action based on what they took away from that week's coaching and from their own sessions with me. So everybody's going to be constantly doing little movements, little actions that are new, a little bit uncomfortable, but are designed to put the stuff into action. Basically, you shouldn't even show interest in the program if you're not willing to take actions, because the actions are everything, right? Everything. Jason says interested in find out what artistic language is all about. This is a particular section in the module where we're going to be looking at how to understand that when someone's emotional, especially a feminine person, their language is not, literal. But it's not lying either, it's artistic, it's metaphors, it's representing. So if someone says, I can't believe you left the dishes unclean, they're not really talking about the dishes. They're saying, I'm upset and I feel hurt. And I'm going to teach you how to hear what they're really saying and then speak to that rather than getting caught up in the details of the literal content and going completely off track, which is what almost every guy does in arguments in a relationship. It's like, but you said this. I did exactly what you said. It's like, no, you didn't hear her. She wasn't saying that. She was using that to represent how she feels. And that's the bit you didn't hear. So it'll also help you a lot with not taking things personally. So when your partner says, oh, you never spend any time with the kids. You're like, I spent fucking yesterday with the kids. Like, she's not saying that, right? She's saying she feels overwhelmed. She's saying she feels unsupported, right? The details about how much time you spend with the kids, irrelevant. It's not what she's talking about. If you can say, oh, so you're not feeling well supported at the moment, then you'll nail it. And you'll realise it was never about the kids. What was another one? We've got a few here. Choosing your battles. Let me just see, it's quite a long one. Let me just read this. Attempting to control people is apparently what I'm being asked here. So, assertive, aggressive on matters that aren't within your sphere or influence or control. we're going to be looking at specifically how to express your boundaries, what you want, what you disagree with, and so on, without any attempt to actually control the other person. It's more like an invitation. You're going to be learning how to invite them to change their behavior so that you can get along with them better. You're going to be showing them what respecting you looks like, but at no point will you be trying to make them respect you. I mean, if you have to try and make someone respect you, then you don't really respect yourself. That's kind of a theme throughout the course. So one of the key things is you're going to learn how to set very strong boundaries and barriers, but actually without any attempt to control someone else's behavior. It's like an art to this, and it's actually very effective in changing other people's behavior, even though that's not the goal. Some person challenge the use of the word nice guys, and this often gets challenged because people are like, what's wrong with being nice? When I say nice guys, you know what I mean. I mean nice guy syndrome. I mean people who are people pleasers in order to overcome their own insecurities, right? People who sacrifice what they really want to say and what they really want to do and how they actually feel so that other people feel good, right? I'm not talking about people who are kind and generous from a pure altruistic place, right? I'm talking about people who their behavior appears to be nice, but it's actually kind of an act and it's kind of a manipulation to get what you want. Those are the guys I'm working with. By the end of this, you'll still be generous and kind and compassionate, but you'll also have balls, right? You won't allow boundaries to be crossed. You'll stand up for yourself. You'll speak your mind clearly and concisely and be taken seriously. BTS, as my therapist calls it, right? You'll learn to, when you say something, people are like, oh, fuck, this guy's for real. As well as kindness, right? No one's going to be scared of you after this. They're going to respect you. That's the point. And respect comes from the combination. It's like, well, if you behave well, I'll be kind to you. If you don't, I'm going to speak up. So, that's the questions I got sent on a recent post. I hope that answers it for you. Still in developing the content for the course, about halfway through now, so almost there. And once it's ready, I'm going to be running a kind of trial version of it. It'll be invitation only. So those of you who have been answering my questions and Messenger and stuff, thank you very much. You'll be the first to be invited. This is not going to be open entry. I'm going to be doing a discounted first run through for the people who get invited. So I'll let you know more about that soon. If you want to be on that list, let me know and we can go through the questions together. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Cheers for showing up and have yourselves an awesome week. Cheers.